Bleacher Report gang, what is up? I'm Kurt Benker back with another NFL Daily. I go live most Mondays and Wednesdays, same time, same place. And I'll be here all year long talking about fantasy football, real football, some predictions, some analysis, maybe some betting, who knows? But we've got a lot of football on the way coming soon. Now, right now, what is it? It's June 16th. We're already halfway through June, which means July is right around the corner. We get some video game drops in July, some in August. Training camp starts back up. And then we get this thing rolling. NFL season, 2025 season, and we get a whole new identity for a bunch of different teams, bunch of different players, and everything in between. But tonight, we've got to talk about some buy low quarterback options for fantasy football. And I've done a lot of scanning over their average draft position, where these guys are going, and a lot of it will change as training camp battles go along, as we get new additions to teams, some injuries, some this and that. Like, a lot of things change, but as of right now, we've got some guys that are on my radar for a lot of different reasons. Some we'll talk about for high potential. Some we'll talk about for getting back to where they were. Some that showed flashes that need to take it to another step, and they finally have the right pieces in place to help them get there. So tonight, we will be talking about all of the buy low quarterback options for 2025 in fantasy football. This has implications for redraft and for dynasty. Take it for what it's worth. A lot of it I'm going to be talking about in real football, in real terms. So if it applies to more of your dynasty leagues, take it. If it applies to more of your redraft, run with it. And we'll see where everything shakes up at the end of the night. But without further ado, it's time to get into it. Let's talk some ball. Flip that screen. Producer man. Thank you, sir. All right, guys, we're going to talk about a few different categories here. We're going to go by different tiers, okay? We're going to talk about the rookies that we have. We're going to talk about the Pro Bowl potential players. And then we're going to talk about the All-Pro potential players. And these are not going to be guys that are already there. These are not going to be guys that are Josh Allen's, Lamar Jackson's. I don't want to talk about those guys. They get talked about enough. Appreciate you coming through and chat, by the way. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk about guys and their specific situations that I've done a bunch of deep dives on, some deep research, scan the roster, scan their schedules, all of it. And we're going to talk about them. But first, before we set this off, let's talk about the rookies and some of their situations. Now, we picked out 4 rookies that I wanted to talk about tonight. Talking about Shedeur Sanders, who we'll get to first, and then we'll talk about a few others. But Shedeur Sanders is in a really unique position. Presumably QB4 heading into Browns training camp. If you're in a dynasty league, Shedeur Sanders is absolutely worth stashing because you never know what he might be, especially if you're in one of those deep leagues where you have like 20, 30 people rosters, like where you can't get anybody on waivers. I think Shedeur, you should buy low right now before he makes any more waves throughout preseason. He's got high reward, low risk at this point in time. I think he's worth stashing. You don't know who's going to start the year. It's probably going to be Joe Flacco, but based on all accounts, Shedeur has shown to be maybe the most exciting guy to watch throughout training camp. I think Dillon Gabriel is a good quarterback, but I think he's a terrible fit for what the Browns do in this pro-style scheme. I'd like to see Dillon Gabriel get a chance to go somewhere else. I talked about it earlier this week, potentially maybe reuniting with the Dolphins. Wasn't really like a hot take. Some media outlets ran with it, but it was more so I knew that they called him during the draft. I knew that they loved him before the draft, and I knew that the Browns took him before he was available to get back to the Dolphins. That's what I do know about Dillon Gabriel. Fact checked, 100% true. Now, does that mean he ends up back in Miami? Probably not. Does that mean that he might be somewhere else by the time training camp is over, by the time rookie minicamp is over? Maybe. And at the end of the day, if they got Shedeur Sanders on a 5th round rookie price, and they have Dillon Gabriel on a 3rd round rookie price, if they ship out Dillon Gabriel for a 4th or a 5th, it doesn't really make a difference. Just because Dillon Gabriel was a 3rd round pick does not mean he's going to be there to start the year. And there might be other teams that were willing to take him in the 4th or 5th round that might like him for a 4th or 5th round price for next year's draft. So keep that in mind. Also, I will say, I don't think anyone has been impressed by Kenny Pickett so far. I think that he's just a guy. And I think that at the end of the day, the Browns are their entire coaching staff is probably going to get fired at the end of this year. If they don't make it to the playoffs, which it's going to be steep, they're probably not going to make it through this contract cycle. So why not put a guy out on the field that will put fans in the seats? There we go. Long day. Get a guy that can fill the stadium up. You have really not a whole lot to play for. You'll ride with Joe Flacco probably for a little bit, see if he can get you some wins early, get some momentum, maybe be like a run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-ground team. But at the end of the day, it's probably going to be Shedeur Sanders playing football for the Cleveland Browns at some point in time this year because their fans are going to need something to get excited about. Even if he plays terrible, at least he'll fill up the stadium. So Shador Sanders, that's what I wanted to talk about for a buy low option. You can buy him super low right now, in my opinion, in dynasty leagues, in fantasy in general. If you're in a redraft league, I don't think you should go get him. I don't think even if he starts, he's going to be worth rostering. But dynasty, probably worth a late round flyer. Now let's talk about the next rookie, because now these rookies are in a little bit different situation. I want to talk about Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is one of the most talented passers to come out of the draft in the past few years. Everybody was gloating all about Caleb Williams and all that. I was not that impressed. I think he's a solid player. I think that he can be good. I think Caleb Williams will be fine with Ben Johnson. I'm telling you right now, Cam Ward throws the football different. And I'm going to be honest, it reminds me of Patrick Mahomes. It's a little bit unorthodox. His arm angles can change. He has incredible accuracy across all different platforms. And he's just a leader. He's a dog. And you can tell that there's something different about him when he's playing football, that he's a killer. I like Cam Ward. I like him in Dynasty. I potentially like him as a stash this year in regular fantasy redraft, mainly because I think the Titans are going to be playing from behind this year. I think they're going to have to put up points. I also think that I really like Cam Ward matched with Calvin Ridley. I think that he's going to have a good rapport with his tight end. I think that Cam Ward could be serviceable as a waiver wire guy sometimes here and there, especially late in the season as quarterbacks get hurt. We remember a couple of years ago, guys, there was like 15 to 20 starting quarterbacks in the NFL that got hurt. Cam Ward might be serviceable as a fantasy starting quarterback at some point this year. So just keep an eye out. And if it's dynasty, absolutely go grab him. Cam Ward, in my opinion, could be better than the CJ Stroud story of a few years ago. Comes onto the scene, lights it up, Pro Bowl, all that, MVP talks for a few weeks. I think Cam Ward, if everything lines up, could go that route. Now, they're going to need to build with him. They're going to need to bring guys in over the next few years. But if you give me Cam Ward and someone like the Jaguars building of their receiving core over the next few years, you might be looking at an entirely new Tennessee Titans team by the time 2027 rolls around. So in Dynasty, buy Cam Ward now if you can. Hold on to him. Close your eyes. Wake up. You'll be happy you did it. Now, let's talk about the next rookie. Now, I did a deep dive on one quarterback by the name of Russell Wilson last night, just for this show, because I really love Jackson Dart. Now, let me pull this up so I get all my fact checking 100% correct. All right. So, Russell Wilson, in my opinion, will not last the season as the starter. I think eventually it's going to be Jackson Dart. And here, my friends, is why. Last year with the Steelers offense, Russell Wilson threw checkdowns on 13% of his dropbacks, highest in the league. Russell Wilson threw the ball away on 7% plus of his dropbacks, highest in the league. He had the 6th highest time to throw, all that in consideration, and was sacked 9% plus of his dropbacks. Altogether, if we do some quick mathematics here, 30% of Russell Wilson's dropbacks led to either a throwaway, a sack, or a checkdown. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be fit to operate in this offense that needs to hit its crossing routes and needs to throw the ball across the middle of the field. Yes, he has Malik Neighbors, who is a dog. But I think Jackson Dart, with what he brings to the table as a rusher and as a leader, and with his down the field crosser mentality of a thrower, I think Jackson Dart's going to be starting before probably week 7. We might walk into a situation with Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. It's very similar to probably even a better situation than Michael Penix Jr. walked into last year with Kirk Cousins. Jackson Dart will be starting at some point this year, and once he gets on the field, he's not going to come off. I see this being with Jackson Dart like the Chargers situation from a couple years ago. They signed Tyrod Taylor to be the starter, drafted Justin Herbert, wanted to give Justin Herbert a little bit of time to develop. Tyrod Taylor gets stabbed in the freaking spleen by a doctor, and all of a sudden, Justin Herbert is starting. Watch out for the doctors in New York. Russell Wilson, I do not think is going to last more than the first 8 weeks as the starter. I don't think he brings enough electric play to the table. It's going to really come down to what does the defense do, and can the defense dictate the tempo of the games where Russ can keep it close and finish? Because if he gets into shootouts, I don't think he has it in him anymore. It's going to be Jackson Dart time before long. Now, I know we're running a little bit over. We're really diving into these rookies right now, but this stuff's important. Let's get to the next guy. Stash Jaylen Milrod. Stash him, love him, look at him on your roster and just know what could be, because the risk reward is there. You can get him for nothing basically right now, especially in Dynasty. If you're talking about redraft, just keep your eyes on him and try to get him a week or two ahead of when everybody else is going to. If Sam Darnold appears like he's struggling a little bit, if he appears to not start hot, he doesn't have Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison or Aaron Jones to rely on anymore. And he doesn't have Kevin O'Connell. He's going to be playing for the Seahawks, who have a defensive-minded head coach. And I know that this defensive-minded head coach, who I spent 3 hours with a couple weeks ago, absolutely loves Jaylen Milrod. Loves what Sam Darnold can bring to the table, but really loves Jaylen Milrod and could not believe that the Seahawks were able to get him in the 3rd round. Blew his mind. Loves what he's bringing to the table. Loved what he showed in rookie minicamp, all throughout OTAs and all that. I would not be shocked to see Jaylen Milrod starting for the Seattle Seahawks at some point. And when he steps on the field, I could see it being like a Jalen Hurts situation where he just never comes off the field again. And they mold the offense around him. They navigate everything with him, help him get up to speed. But Jaylen Milrod is a defensive head coach's dream because he can run the ball, he can control the clock, he can beat you with his arm and his legs, and that is really hard to prepare for, and I know that defensive head coaches value that. Look at Jaden Daniels with the Washington Commanders. Could see it as a situation like that. Now, look, the division is tough, but I think Jaylen Milrod has what it takes to elevate that Seahawks team past where Sam Darnold can. I think Sam Darnold can be a good bridge. I know they just paid him $100 million, but the Atlanta Falcons just paid Kirk Cousins $100 million last year, and we saw what happened there. Nothing against Sam Darnold. I like Sam Darnold in a better situation with more receivers, but I don't think this is the best situation for him. So give me Jaylen Milrod as a deep stash in a dynasty league, and keep your eyes out for him on the waivers in a redraft league if things start getting weird in Seattle, because I know they love him there. Now, been talking a lot, boys and girls, maybe girls. I don't know who's here, but I know I'm here. Let's get to the next one. Let's talk about Pro Bowl potential players. Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love can get back to Pro Bowl caliber play this year with the addition of Matthew Golden. Now, Matthew Golden is going to have to step up. He's going to have to connect. He's going to have to make big plays, make contested catches, and he's going to have to get behind the defense. But if the Green Bay Packers can get back to where they were 2 years ago in the playoffs when they went on that deep run in the playoffs and almost took the 49ers down before the Super Bowl run, I think the Packers can do it. And the Packers were number 2, I believe, in the league in drop passes. If you just cut that in half, and they were ugly drops, ugly. If you just cut that in half, Jordan Love, his stats look tremendous. He looks like an even better player. They stay on the field longer. There's less turnovers. There's less backed up situations. There's less 3rd and longs. Jordan Love can get back to Pro Bowl caliber play in 2024 if his receivers step the up. And if he can keep his knee healthy. Remember last year, guys, we all thought he tore his ACL in the opening night in Brazil. That affected his entire season, and he still had 25 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. With the 2nd most drop passes in the league, Jordan Love can get back to Pro Bowl caliber play, and if his receivers really, really elevate, we could see him bumping up even further from that. I love him right now. I like buying low on Jordan Love in fantasy this year because I just think last year was a fluke, guys. Give me more Jordan Love. But give me the next Pro Bowl potential player who I think this might be the make or break year for his entire career, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has every reason to pop off this year. And if he can just cut out the weird stuff that we know he does from time to time, he could legit pop into all-pro potential if he plays at his ceiling almost all year long. Now, he has a play caller who gave Baker Mayfield, in my opinion, the best year of his career through play calling, through play design, threw for 40-some touchdowns, not that many interceptions relative. Like, it was crazy. I think it was like a 3-to-1 ratio. Trevor Lawrence now is a play caller that can dial it up, and he has one of the most generational players that we've seen in a draft ever in Travis Hunter. And then he has who I believe could be a top 10 receiver this year in Brian Thomas Jr. Give me Trevor Lawrence to have an absolute great year if he can stop the weird stuff. I like him in the Pro Bowl potential, mainly because his division's weak, and I think he's got all the weapons around him to put up 30-plus points a game. If he can cut out the weird stuff in situational football, like throwing interceptions in the red zone or sliding in bounds and not running out of bounds when the clock's ticking and he needs to save time, he could be an all-pro player this year. But he's got to take a big jump because last year he wasn't even a Pro Bowl player. But give me Trevor Lawrence to take a jump with a good OC who's going to dial it up with weapons around him. It might get weird in the AFC South. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Give me the next one. Let's keep it rolling. Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray could be a Pro Bowl player. And I'm under the camp and in the belief that if you popped Kyler Murray onto the Detroit Lions right now, Kyler Murray would be talked about a lot differently but he's stuck in Arizona with the Cardinals. He's got a bunch of young guys around him, but he kind of found a groove a little bit last year. Remember, he came off the ACL, took him a little bit of time. Kyler Murray is going to be now 2 years removed from the ACL, and he's a scrambler. We know he still made big plays last year with his feet. He's going to be better with his feet this year, and I love him in fantasy football. I'm buying low on Kyler Murray. I'm willing to trade a lot for him at this point. I think Kyler Murray can be in more comfortable shootouts, is willing to use his legs more. I mean, 69% completion percentage, 3,800 yards, 21 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. You know what it is. Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to take a little bit of a jump. I think statistically it was like fine. I don't think he really like excelled a whole lot, but I think between McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., and having maybe some more passes out of the backfield to James Conner, might be in contention for having a good year this year for Kyler Murray. Now, let's get to the next one. Everyone was out on Justin Fields. And I was banging on the table for the Steelers to start Justin Fields the entire year last year. And ultimately, them benching him led to their demise. Now he goes to the Jets, and I think that he is actually going to be fit to do what they kind of have to do with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson in that offense. I love Justin Fields to play every single game, have a lot of rushing yards, be a great fantasy quarterback, and I am buying low on Justin Fields this year because I think he could be a top 8 fantasy quarterback without question because he's willing to tote the rock. Give it to me. Comeback season. Justin Fields, as far as a fantasy option, I think gets it done. Now, let's talk about some high flyer, all-pro potential players who I think can take the next step and just put them up there. Let's get the next one rolling. I think this guy can bounce back like he has not done, and I think he's got a new offensive coordinator. I think the scheme's going to fit him a little bit better. I think his receivers are going to be healthier. I think his O-line got a little beefed up, and I also think that his defense got better, which him not having to be in as many shootouts late in games because his defense plays better is going to help CJ Stroud get back to his efficient play. And I'm telling you guys, when he was a rookie and everything was humming and his guys were healthy and Nico Collins wasn't missing games, he was in the MVP conversation for a couple weeks. I'm not even going to lie. He was there for a couple weeks. Give him in year 3 to have a bounce back year from a slow year 2. And I like it, man. It's going to be, in my opinion, between the Texans and the Jaguars for that division this year. Cam Ward's going to come into the mix, but low-key, we're probably going to get some pretty good quarterback play out of the AFC South. That division looks entirely different than it did a few years ago when it was Levis and young Trevor Lawrence and Davis Mills and Matt Ryan in the last leg of his career. This division looks different. I think CJ Stroud, when he is humming, has the aura to be an all-pro quarterback. And when he is dialed in and throwing under pressure with precision, he's one of the best to do it. I want to see him get back to form this year. I think he's going to get there, and I'm excited to see how he plays. I have him in getting back to Pro Bowl at least, but I really think he can get to the All-Pro spot. Now, these two next guys, let's talk about the first one. Bo Nix. Bo Nix had a sneaky good rookie season last year. And the craziest part is he's going to have a top 5 defense this year that only got better, that might even rival the Eagles for the number 1 defense in the league, while also getting better on offense. Their running game's going to get better, got more weapons across the board at receiver and tight end. Evan Ingram into the mix. If Evan Ingram can stay healthy, that's another 900 yards that Bo Nix didn't have last year to tight ends, in my opinion. Potential. Now, Evan Ingram's got to cook, but I would not be shocked to see Bo Nix just absolutely take off this year and be a high flyer in the all-pro category for buying low and how we're breaking this down for fantasy. I could see Bo Nix legit be a modern-day Drew Brees with more athleticism, more upside as a runner, and honestly, he's got a better team defensively. They could run away with some things now, and I don't think the AFC West is just going to go to the Chiefs so easy. I have the Broncos as my dark horse team to take the West this year. I have Bo Nix as my dark horse player to get top 7 quarterbacks this year across the board. I think he could do it. If he can get his running game going a little bit more like he did in college, I really like it. He's one of the most accurate underneath and intermediate passers in the league. And he started hot. I think he's going to finish what he started from, he finished strong. I think he's going to start this year hot, rolling into it. And their defense, man, I'm telling you, when you have a defense at quarterback that you know you can rely on, it makes playing your position on your side of the ball even better. You can make better decisions. You don't have to play superhero ball, and you can just be smart and distribute. Not to mention, big fan of RJ Harvey, a little sneak sleeper out there at running back. I know they just signed Dobbins or whatever. RJ Harvey's lightning in a bottle. And once he gets involved in the passing attack, that is Sean Payton's, who feeds running backs more than anybody in the league. Watch out. Another fantasy sleeper, but buy low on quarterback Bo Nix. Now, last but not least, one of my favorite wild takes. Give me Michael Penix Jr. to have the year of a lifetime. Michael Penix Jr. didn't play last year really until the last 3 weeks of the season. First week was a little eh. Second week, you saw some plays that you were like, holy shit, haven't seen anyone make that throw in a while across the entire league. And then the very last week, he threw for 300 plus yards, absolutely was slinging it all around, took it to overtime, then ended up losing. But he put up 30-some, 40 points, whatever with his team. Now he gets a full training camp as being quarterback one. Now he gets a full training camp as being QB1 with timing with wide receiver 1, running back 1, new offense catered to him, not to Kirk Cousins, a full offseason deep dive and self-scout into who they can be and what other guys around the league are doing. And I'm not going to lie to you, I love Darnell Mooney. I just traded for him in my fantasy dynasty league. I think Darnell Mooney is going to easily go over 1,000 yards this year. Michael Penix Jr., I think his line is set at 3,400 passing yards, something stupid last time I checked. Fact check me if I'm wrong. I could see Michael Penix Jr. having a Jordan Love year from a few years ago where he just pops off for 4,500 passing yards, a couple hundred rushing yards if he's able to sneak out a few long ones, and is just flying through the season in a relatively weak division. I think that the Bucs are solid. I think that the Saints are terrible. I think that the Panthers are still the Panthers. They're going to get a little bit better, but I still think that the Falcons, if their defense can just stop a nosebleed this year, Michael Penix Jr. has the arm talent to absolutely sling it around, and we could see him popping up into the Pro Bowl potential caliber player. And as far as buying low options, I could see him in our all-pro buying low option category where you just get massive return on investment for grabbing him now. People aren't even drafting him right now in redraft leagues. I got him in my dynasty league. He's my third quarterback. He's probably going to be in the starting lineup a lot of weeks this year. I love it, but these are my guys. Let's get a quick little recap. In terms of buying low quarterback options for 2025, we're going to give it 3 categories: our rookies, our Pro Bowl potential return on investment, and our all-pro potential return on investment based on average draft position. I got Shedeur Sanders, who you can get for nothing right now, especially in redraft. I don't love him in redraft, but I do love him in dynasty. You got Cam Ward, who I think at some point this year is going to be worth a start or two in fantasy. And I think that over the long term, they give a few years of building around him, he could be a really good dynasty quarterback. And then you have Jackson Dart, who right now is not going to be the starter, but I believe by week 8 he will be starting based on my deep dive that I did on Russell Wilson not long ago. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be fit to lead that team, and I think before long it's going to be Jackson Dart's team. And then last with the rookies, Jaylen Milrod, worth a stash in dynasty. I know that they signed Sam Darnold to a large contract, but I also know they absolutely love Milrod and could not believe that he was there in the 3rd round. They like him. I think he brings a lot of upside, and he's one to keep a tab on. Then you have your Pro Bowl potential return on investment players. Jordan Love, your Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields. These guys that, in my opinion, won't necessarily be a top 5 player in fantasy, but based on their average draft position, they could easily squeak in a top 10 all on their own and be well worth where you're drafting them in fantasy football. And then last but not least, these are flyers. These are guys that have all pro potential return on investment in fantasy football that I think if they play to their potential and have everything go their way, it could be a lights out season. CJ Stroud getting back to form with a new offensive coordinator and hopefully an O-line that'll keep him upright. Bo Nix with one of the best defenses in the league, absolutely just being able to pour it on in a probable pass-happy offense this time around, now that he's a little bit more comfortable in the system and Sean Payton trusts him. And last but not least, give me Michael Penix Jr. as my draft gem for fantasy football. Would not be shocked at all to see him throw for over 4,400 passing yards in an offense that's going to need it. They're going to need to score points. I think Michael Penix Jr. has the arm to do it. This is my buy low quarterback options segment for 2025. That's a wrap. Appreciate you guys being here. I'll catch you next time.